Hello, everybody, and welcome to this In Conversation Masterclass with my good friend and biryani maker, Mariam not Ottimofiore. Mariam is not allowed to come and stay with me without bringing the ingredients for biryani. So I've known Mariam for a number of years, and she was just about born abroad, has got a husband who's of German Italian extraction. Mariam has got a Pakistani passport, but has grown up in New York, Bahrain, and I've probably forgotten somewhere else. No? Yes, so they've got those places too. And she has lived in England, Denmark, Singapore, Dubai, Ghana, and is now in Lisbon, Portugal. Her children were born 3,000 miles apart on 3 separate continents. So her mobile life has continued from birth to now. And yes, it's messy. And Mariam is the author of This Messy Mobile Life. She has a blog called And Then We Moved To. Her book came out 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And she's here to talk to us today about creating a panel of experts in order to give her book gravitas and to give herself authority. So welcome, Mariam. It's absolutely fantastic to have you here. I hope you can bring some of your Portuguese sunshine to us today.
I would love to, Joe. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be back having a chat with you, even if it's virtual. But yeah, better than nothing.
Absolutely. Lovely to have you here. Now, what really inspired me to ask you to do this In Conversation Masterclass today was the story you told me about when a journalist rang you up and wanted to interview you for an article and then blew you out when she knew you hadn't written a book. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
I love that you remember that, Joe. Yes, I'd be happy to share how my book journey got started. So let me just set the scene for you. I was sitting in my living room in Dubai. It was the year 2017, and it was dinner time in our household. So I was trying to feed both my kids, who at the time were 5 and 2-year-old, and there's spaghetti flying everywhere. It's a feral time when all of a sudden my phone rang, and I looked at it, not really looking at it. It was a US number. I thought, oh, it's probably just a friend or a family member calling, and I picked it up, and it was a reporter from the Wall Street Journal on the other end, Joe. And she introduced herself and said she was writing an article about living this global life and raising a family overseas with multiple cultures and languages, and that she had found me through my blog. And then we moved to .com, and she was interested in getting a quote from me to appear in the article that she was writing. And I said, sure, just ignoring the chaos in front of me, trying to think on the spot, trying to give a good quote. And after I gave her what I thought was a good response, which she seemed to like, she said, oh, this is great. Can I just confirm, have you written a book on this topic? And I said, no, not yet. And, suddenly I could just feel the tone of the interview, just the tone of the phone call, just switch. And after that exchange, I just felt so deflated because I had this sinking suspicion that because I had not written a book on the topic, hence I could not be considered an expert on the topic. Hence, it was likely that my code may not appear in this article. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. My quote never made it into that article, Joe. And I already knew why. So rejection hurts, but rejection can also be this catalyst or be your wake up moment when you realize that you really want to turn things around, and the book that might still be in your head needs to come out for people to be able to see that and take that into account. So this is my lovely catalyst story of being rejected by the Wall Street Journal. And the irony was that I'd been an economist in my previous life, And the Wall Street Journal had never called me in my 8 to 9 years of a corporate career, Joe. But now that I was an expat writer, there they were on the other end of the phone. So, opportunities come and you just never know from where and who is reading your work. But then it's also up to you, I guess, to turn those opportunities into, more opportunities for yourself. And that was the question I then faced.
Mm. So did you think then that you could achieve it? You could write a book in order to be, so it's a pivot point so that you would then be quoted next time?
I definitely wanted to write a book. There had been an idea of this book in my head for quite a while, for over a year, and the idea had come to me while I was sitting on the sand dunes in the Arabian desert, and I thought, that's where most of my good ideas were generated. But I thought, okay, there is an idea for a book, but Joe, like so many people, I really doubted myself, and I doubted if I had it in me to write the kind of book that I was envisioning, and really like an authority piece, but also really representative of who I was, and sort of my non-traditional background, my non-Western centric background. I really wanted to write something that would be like, oh, okay, make people take notice. So I thought I could, but I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. And I also wasn't sure if just my own experiences and stories would be enough. Sure, maybe they could inspire people, but would they be enough to be, the authority in a book? So that was definitely something I grappled with.
I think that what you said there will resonate with many first-time authors. So let's just set the scene even more. You set the sand dune scene, which is lovely, but where were you in your business at this moment?
hmm That's a good question. So I mentioned I had a corporate career, which I then stopped in 2012 when I moved to Singapore, pregnant and unemployed, and decided to reinvent myself as an expat writer. So from 2012, I had been writing as a freelance writer and been doing various things. I'd also been on the editorial team of a magazine, a lifestyle magazine in Singapore, etc. And before that, even while I was an economist, I was the co-author of a very research-oriented academic book published by Palgrave Macmillan, something that's taught, in lectures and seminars, economic seminars for college students. So I'd definitely done business writing before. And at this time, what had happened was when I'd moved to Dubai in 2016, I had set up my blog and then we moved to. So when the Wall Street Journal didn't put my quote in the article, I had already been blogging for over a year and a half, and I had already built up quite an audience. I'd already been on Oprah. My expat life had been featured on Oprah Winfrey Network as part of Super Soul Sunday. They slightly messed things up, but that's a whole different story. But my name was out there, and I'd been nominated for Best Parent Blog in Dubai, and there was a lot of buzz. And so I guess the crucial point to note is that I had already built a blog and already had an audience. And I had already been to my first Families in Global Transition conference as a writer. So I had also a lot of experience from that, and getting to know a few people, getting to understand the issues that were being discussed in the globally mobile world. So that's where I was in 2017. It was, I think, October, November of 2017.
You were actually in I would say a better place than a lot of people are when they start to write a book. So I hope that hasn't put some of the people off listening. That it sounds very very grand really where you were. You weren't wrong though. I mean, it is a really good idea to start with the blog and not wait till you've written the book to then start blogging. So you did do it the right way around. By accident, was it?
Yeah, I think it was really by accident. I don't think I would love to say I would I had the foresight to look ahead. But the truth is, Joe, as you know, I live such a messy mobile life myself that I don't really have a 5-year plan. I don't even have a 5-month plan, to be very honest. I don't even know what's going to happen 5 months down the road. So I'd love to pretend that that was part of a big game plan, but it wasn't. But I think, we all have to start somewhere, and just putting, your ideas in a blog and connecting with your audience, you can see what kinds of things and ideas are resonating with them, and that can really help you. Because when you're starting out, you want to test the waters a bit, and you want to gauge where is your writer's voice hitting that note, where is it striking a chord with other people. And so blogging helped me to do that. It helped me to find my writer's voice and also see what kinds of issues and themes were people connecting with, and what was resonating with them.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely valid reason for starting with the blog. It's not crucial. I can see I've already had a comment from Yvonne saying, so mine is the wrong way round. It is helpful to start with the blog for exactly the reasons that Mariam has mentioned. So what did you do then? What did you put in place to then make this book writing dream come true?
hmm I think often when we have a dream, we may not know what to do, but maybe we know one person who can help us with, or two people, or maybe we don't have the answer ourselves, but maybe we know someone who might be able to guide us in the right direction or give us that nudge or push. And so that's what I did. I sort of looked at my circle and thought, well, who can help me visualize this dream into reality. And you were one of the people, Joe, in my circle. You had been my writing mentor for the writing scholarship that we did the year before. And so, I remember sending you a message and just saying, there's this idea of a book in my head, and I'd love to discuss it with you. And you were living in the Netherlands at the time. You had left Malaysia. You were in the Netherlands, in The Hague. And you said, oh, well, I'm going to be in Dubai at the end of the month. So shall we have a chat then? And that's sort of, how things got started. So I think just reaching out to people who could help you. Perhaps it's, an author whose work you're familiar with, or perhaps it's somebody who who might have been on a similar path. It's really helpful. And what I love is that, from my experience, I think writers and authors, they're such a great community. They love helping each other out, and what they've learned and what they've shared, and all the hard lessons they learn as they go along. So I think that's something that's great. I mean, just reach out to anybody who in your circle who could help you, point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I would agree. And it doesn't have to be somebody who's a writing mentor. It can be a fellow writer or somebody else who's been there, done that. So you wrote This Messy Mobile Life. So tell us a little bit about what it's about and who it's for.
Sure. Um, I was just very frustrated, Joe, looking at the books that were out there at this time, because I felt either all the books dealt with third culture kids, how to raise them when your children are the ones experiencing mobility or a globally mobile life, or there were the ones who were the books that were, marketed by relocation professionals, and it talked all about how to make, that perfect move, your best move, how to move abroad, why moving abroad was the best thing you could do. And I just really wanted to write a book that portrayed the reality of what a life abroad actually means. And I really wanted the word messy in it, in the title. I really wanted one word that would capture both the good and the bad, because for me, that's really what living a globally mobile life is. One day you're crying into your coffee cup, and the next day you're, on cloud nine, right? And I really wanted to write a very realistic book, first of all. And I also, Joe, really wanted to write a book that would portray the current reality of a modern expat family. I was a little bit, you know, just frustrated to see that simple narrative being repeated over and over again, where you've got two people from the same country, they go to another country and then they repatriate, and it's about expatriation versus repatriation, and then it's a full circle journey. And that's not how life is for many of us. We don't know where we're going to be next. And I read a statistic that really made me think, and the statistic was that only 23% of expat partners and spouses end up repatriating. And I remember thinking to myself, well, what happens to the other majority of people? They go on, they go to a new country, they stay in their country, maybe long term in the country that they're in. There's so many things that happen. And for me, it was about capturing that complexity. And for me, it was about capturing also the complexity of what happens when you keep mixing these different cultures, these different languages, these different norms and ideas, and in return, how do they then shape our identity and our idea of home and our sense of belonging? So I really wanted to tackle all these messy threads of a mobile life that I felt needed to be discussed.
Yeah, and many facets to your life. So did you feel, to your book, sorry, did you feel that the project was too big?
Yes, absolutely. I honestly felt overwhelmed, Joe, because the
Mm,
project I was envisioning was truly big. And I had a lot of self-doubt, a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of, just also realizing that my own experience may not be enough to write the kind of authoritative book I really wanted to write. And so, yes, in a nutshell, I remember feeling overwhelmed and not quite sure where to start.
yeah. Well, you did it, and you did exactly what I recommend a lot of people do in order to write this sort of a book. I call it a how-to book. You explained the concepts, of which there were many, with facts and information. You then showed the point you were trying to make, such as, say, how to raise multilingual children, and you showed that with examples from your own story. You then showed the point you were trying to make, or illustrated it again through the stories of other people. So we've now got the information, your story, other people's story. Then you proved that what you were trying to say, teach, and show stood up, because you got experts to then endorse what you were saying. And so you did what I call say it, show it, prove it. But in order to do that, you had to call on a number of people. You needed lots of people. You needed case studies. You needed experts. So I'm now not looking at my list of questions here and just asking you, how did you find them, and why did you want them, and how did you find them?
Yeah, that's a really good summary actually of where I was. So there were there were two types of people who I needed to be able to write this book. One were the case studies, as you mentioned, Joe, the people who were also living a globally mobile life. I wanted the book not just to be about myself and my experiences, but hear from other people's experiences. So that was one group of people who I wanted. Fellow expats, fellow internationals, fellow globally mobile families. The way I reached out to them was through my blog. Again, having a blog really helped because that meant I already have so many people, so many families who I could reach out to. And just a quick note that, the blog helps you really build relationships with people. So don't underestimate that, because you need a relationship sometimes to ask people for, help in filling out a survey, or, whatever it is that you need, which is actually what I decided to do in the end. So everything is sort of connected in that sense. But yeah, I reached out to members in my my readers, different people who were reading my blog, different globally mobile families, and I had made up a survey, a globally mobile survey that I was then able to send to them and get their response back. and sort of see what themes were resonating with them, what issues were they facing. They were encouraged to give anecdotal evidence and anecdotal, stories, and those actually ended up becoming the case studies in my book. So that was one way, and the other way was when I went to the FIGT conference, the Families and Global Transition Conference in 2018. I remember having made bookmarks for my book. I remember telling everybody who I was meeting that, hey, I have this book that, I'm working on, and would you mind helping me? Would you mind taking my survey? I was there in the bookstore asking people to sign up to take my survey. And, I was just talking to everybody and anybody, because experience has shown you never know where you're going to get help from, right? So those were the two avenues that I got a lot of case studies from. And
I actually would want to stop you there, because
oh,
I
sure.
think what would be really interesting before we go on to the expert side of things was to help the listeners here get an idea of how big the scale was of this. How many people did you have looking at your blog then, before you started to reach out? What were your numbers like?
Oh, and now I'm trying to think back. um, I had not that many if I think about it, but I think it's the right type of people. For me, it was always more quality over quantity. I had not got, over 10,000 people on Facebook or Instagram. For instance, I think I had about maybe I had 2,000 people on Facebook, on my Facebook group, on my Facebook page. I had a lot of hits to my website. I had over 30,000 visits to my website in a day. Having a website is a great way, because not everyone's going to engage with you on social media. So actually, I actually don't look that much at my social media. I look more at the website and how many hits we're getting, how many people were sharing my content. That was a key thing for me, as opposed to likes. I don't really care so much about likes, but if someone shares your content, my ears would prick up, because that means it resonated with them. So that was sort of the point I was at. But again, I was about a year into my blogging journey, so I didn't have amazing, website traffic back then, but I had a good amount going on.
So you had that already sounds unattainable to many people. I'm sure you were very blasé about it. How many surveys did you get back?
I think I got back around 150 surveys.
Okay, well,
I
they're
may
pretty
have,
good.
yeah, I may have gotten a few more, but I remember some were incomplete, or some, they were missing some information. So I remember I used about 150 surveys. I think must have received about maybe 170, 175. And for some reason, there was some incomplete information, or, for different reasons. I remember, yeah, that was about the amount I used.
Well, I think then, if we were to summarize some of the things you've said that I think are incredibly important to your journey, one was this: you set up the blog to see what the themes were. Then you spoke to people to see what they were interested in, and again to see what themes emerged. So you used it really helped you to find your focus
Mm-hmm.
by doing those two things. But you did something else, which was you asked. You weren't scared to ask, but you also gave something out, because you gave out the bookmark, which has made you memorable. And Mariam, you are the queen of making things look pretty. I mean, look at the books behind her on that shelf, people. When Mariam does a talk, she matches her book. When Mariam has a book launch, she has the top of the cappuccino that's got the messy mobile life written on it. When she has a book launch, she makes a cake that matches her book. But it makes you so memorable. So I wonder whether Montaha is going to do a thing on turquoise, because that's
Yeah, I
what your
love
color
that.
has been.
Oh,
And so you've done the asking, you've made yourself memorable, and then you've done something else. You've really engaged. And those things have really helped. Would you agree that those are the
Absolutely. I think, and I mean, I'm happy to also talk about the last step of the book journey. But before I get to that, I think it's important to highlight these points because when it comes in the end to promoting your book, Joe, as you know, having built those relationships really, really helps because people want to buy a book from someone who they like, who they find interesting, who someone who responds to their messages and comments and engages with them on their different platforms. And I think in the end, what you're doing really is an exchange of storytelling. That really was what my book was about. It was just a vehicle for me to tell my story and other people's stories, and then use it to sort of get that exchange going. So I felt in the end, everything was connected to that. The book launches, the speaking events. I was trying to be a bit cheeky by promoting a book and, getting my speaking my resume as a speaker at the same time attacking both things because, you know, um, your credibility is sort of reinforced. People want to have you as a speaker because you have a book, but then they also want they see you are a speaker. So it's just all connected, is what I'm trying to say. And I think really building those relationships helped me a lot because people were interested in my project and people were genuinely interested in also sharing it, which, as you know, as a writer is super important. You need to have your cheerleaders, to sort of help you get the word out.
Thank you. So let's move on to the other half of my earlier question about the other people, the experts that you needed to call on.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the point to underscore here, Joe, is that, I did not have a PhD in linguistics, for instance. And here I was wanting to write about how do you raise children with multiple languages. But, I hadn't studied that. But so I had to look for some experts who had that knowledge, who had that specific knowledge, for instance, when it came to languages or when it came to cultures. I have crossed cultures, many cultures, but I wanted to hear and include the voices of cross-cultural experts to lend my book even more authority. I thought that my personal stories would be inspiring and would set the scene, and I would share my creative toolbox, which is my Mola Toolbox. But I really wanted to bring the experts in. And as the book, began to take shape, I realized that in a nutshell, I was looking at three important messy threads, and those were culture, language, and mobility. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, okay, well, I would love to have three experts who are experts on cross-cultural living, who are, intercultural experts on blending cultures, and get their expert advice in the book. I would love to have three experts who are, experts in languages, in language acquisition, or in, one of my experts who's here today, Soila, she has studied specifically the sociology of bilingual interaction in families, which I thought was so fascinating because another crucial point for me was to have experts who didn't just have the theoretical knowledge, but also that practical life experience and knowledge. So, I that's why I reached out to people like Soila who had not only done that academic work, but also knew what it was like, raising trilingual kids herself. And I also had three experts on the mobility side. And of course, I had some, really amazing people like Ruth Van Rieken and Valerie Besancini and Kristen Duncombe, who I thought of, who were my three experts specifically on how mobility impacts your parenting. So, in the end, I had nine experts who were sort of part of this panel, who, gave their expertise in the book. And that really elevated the book because then it's not just me, sharing my stories, but you also have the experts giving their advice, and you have the experts responding to the case studies that had been gathered through the survey.
All right. So you've said that quite broadly. So let's take Soili for example. How did you get her involved? Did you write some text and then ask her to comment? Did you tell her what the topic was and get her to give you some ideas and then you wrote the text? what sort of order did it come in?
That's a great question. I remember making documents, 9 documents for each of my 9 experts, and really honing in on their particular speciality, and then coming up with three things I wanted from them. One was a quote that would appear in the book, basically their best advice on their topic. The second one was that I would choose a case study. In fact, I ended up choosing 2 case studies for each expert to then comment on. And the third one was their advice to parents who were dealing with that particular challenge in their life. So those were 3 things. I kept it quite simple because when you're dealing with, I'm writing a book, I'm getting research and getting the survey results back. I'm also trying to manage the 9 experts, make sure everything is communicated in a professional and timely way, and be very clear on deadlines. So there's a lot going on, and a lot to manage. And again, that's the part I am, where my previous skills could help me. But I wanted to keep it clear, so I sent them, this is what I'm looking for from you. And 8 out of 9 experts were people who I had already met, and I actually was, I knew them, so I had a great relationship with them, so it's quite easy. And Soila was the only one I think we hadn't met in person, but then she said, oh, I'm going to be in Berlin this summer, and I said, well, I'm going to be in Berlin, so let's meet up. So we had a coffee in Berlin one morning, while she was visiting and I was visiting, and just sort of thawing out some of the ideas, and just making sure that her response to the case study was going to fit the tone of my book. And so we definitely had that going on with the experts. But in the end, I think I gave my experts 1 month to submit their work back to me, and then that was really helpful.
So you were very strategic about it, but very clear how you did it. So I actually can't remember exactly how it worked because I've worked with so many people since you, but it sounds to me like the way forward would be that you wrote the bones of the book, the skeleton of the book, and then you can plug in the case studies and select the right case studies. And then once you'd got that amount of meat on the bones, you were then able to reach out to the experts to then comment on it. Would that be accurate?
Exactly. That would be accurate. I think by then I had quite a clear structure of how each chapter would look like, and what the ingredients of each chapter would be. So it was a personal story from my end. Then it was setting the scene of which messy thread I would be using and talking about, and then bringing in my experts, showing them what they had to say about, let's say, crossing cultures, and why culture is so important, and then bringing in the other mobile families, making sure the case studies were in there, making sure the case studies were then responded, had a response from one of my experts, and then in the end, building up my Mola toolbox, using all of that together and coming up with a really creative way to then express that as a takeaway for the reader. That was truly those were the ingredients of each chapter. And once I figured that out, along with some help from you, I think it was really easy to just keep doing that in each chapter. So once the structure was there, it was easy to follow it.
Yeah, I think that what we did was we came up with a roadmap for you, so you then knew where you were going. So you've reached out to lots of people. There have been lots of bits and pieces to your book, but do you think that you were very efficient in the way that you contacted and worked with all these people? Because it can be so easy to ask for information, get way too much back, and then you have to throw lots of it away. What did you do
Yeah.
in order to deal with that so that you were being efficient?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, especially the experts that I had, such high caliber experts, so
Mm.
full of knowledge. I wanted to make sure I used everything that they sent back to me, nothing that would get wasted or anything. But I was very clear in terms of what I was asking them, what I was asking from them. Like I said, those 3 things, a quote from them on this topic, their response to a case study, and their best advice for someone else dealing with that issue or challenge. And and those three things, and then also I had some help. I asked them for, to help build my bibliography, like refer resources that you think as an expert I should put in my book, which was actually very helpful, to do, because in the end my bibliography is made with the help of my experts. It's not just me, but all 9 experts who said, well, look at this as well, and this should be in there. So it was quite clear. And in the end, I'm glad I didn't have to waste anything. In fact, everything that I got back from the experts is in the book in one shape or form.
I think you could start an arm of your business helping other people to get experts involved in their book, because you've been so efficient with it. You really have. But the one thing that we haven't really talked about, though you've just touched on it, is we've got your stories. You've used other people's case studies. You've used the experts to prove everything. But then you went one step further and created something of your own. You
Mhm.
created the Mola. So would you like to explain what Mola stands for and what you did with it in your book?
Sure, sure. I mean, I wanted the creative energy of the book to come from me. And because I had all these amazing experts, I was also able to focus on the creative side of the book. So I used the mola in 2 ways. But first, I'll explain what exactly a mola is for anyone here who's listening who may not have heard of it or has no idea what I'm talking about. A mola is quite simply a shirt, just like the shirt I'm wearing. And it's a specific shirt that comes from South America, the Guna tribe in Panama. They are the ones that stitch a mola by hand. And for me, what struck me was how a mola is made. A mola, a shirt, is made by using several layers of brightly colored cloth, which are then stitched one on top of the other. And the layers are, they're stitched and they're closed, and then you've got different colors peeking out from here and there. And the thread that they use is so fine, it's almost invisible, so you can't see it. So you've got this beautiful design and you can't see the thread that's holding it all together. And they make it through using the reverse applique technique. So when you turn a mola over, it reveals this unique design. And it's unique because it says something about the person who's made it, who stitched it together, something about his or her personal journey or cultural heritage. And for me, when I look at the mola, I thought this is the perfect metaphor for living a globally mobile life, because that's actually what we're all doing. We're all busy stitching our life together, and we have got all those layers. And what are we hiding and what are we showing to people when we share our story? So for me, it was the complexity of the mola that really captured the complexity of expat life that I was trying to write about in my book. So AI used the mola as this metaphor. So throughout the book, you have a metaphor. So for instance, I tell you that your cultures, they are the fabric of your mola, because that's the basis of your design. Your languages are the thread of your mola, because what do languages do? They help us to communicate and help us to join those dots together. And then I, likened all the moves that you make as a globally mobile person or family to those extra layers in your design. And, we lead such a multi-layered life. And here was the mola, this multi-layered, shirt that just captured it so perfectly. And I just want to point out that there was Norma McCaig, who had used the mola initially as a metaphor specifically for third culture kids. And through the help of Ruth Van Rieken, who helped me dig up some of her old work, who was a friend of Norma, I was able to then use the mola. I see there's a question. It's just spelled Mola. So MOLA, just quite simply the Mola. I was able to use that and really incorporate all of that and expand that to fit not just TCKs, but also an entire family. And I came up with the new term called the Mola family, and tried to explain what a Mola family would look like. And the other thing I did, Joe, was to turn the MOLA into an acronym. So the M, O, L, and A each stand for something. And I call that my Mola Toolbox. So each of the elements, there's a step that will take you from feeling like a mess to feeling like a Mola.
Wow. And so to tell us what the M, the O, and the L and the A stand for.
The M stands for mix. The O stands for order. The L stands for layer, and the A stands for adventure.
Mm. Yeah, it's just so enlightening, your book. And then the other piece of the puzzle at the end of every chapter is you had an exercise, a family exercise that a family could do in order to explain the concept and sort of put it into practice in their lives, which I thought was a
Absolutely.
lovely, lovely touch.
Yeah, we
Wow.
had exercises at the end of each chapter and also conversation starters for people to have at the dinner table with their own family. Because I don't know about you, Joe, but for us, we're living this hectic, messy, mobile life, and then something happens, and in that stressful moment, one of you wants to get on a plane, the other one doesn't, and truly, that's not the time to be having those conversations about what's important to you. And I thought that if I gave my readers conversation starters to have in at a quiet time, it would make their messy mobile life feel a little bit easier to handle, because they would have had these conversations before being in a situation that required them to figure out what's my response going to be. So exercises and conversation starters were very important to me.
Yeah, a great book with so many aspects to it. So you've called on all these people. How instrumental has having this huge team of people behind you been in helping you to have book launches, for example, all over the world?
Hugely, hugely helpful. It's been, as you know, my main method after the book was published in 2019 was to, for a year, go around from one country to the next, promoting the book, talking about it, and also using the book, to start conversations with people and to build those connections, to build those bridges, as you were mentioning, Joe, in your address just last week. So having the experts, having so many people whose case study was also in the book, it truly helped me in terms of when it came time to talk about the book, because I had people who were helping me from South Africa to the Netherlands. I had people who were recommending me to the organizers of the bilingual fair in New York. And so, I went to I think I went to 9 countries and did multiple events in some of them. Like I did a lot of events in Dubai, one of my old hometowns. I think I did 7 or 9 events in Ghana where I was living at the time. I spoke at women's clubs, international clubs. I spoke at international schools, anything that was to do with my book. In South Africa, I, had help from relocation agencies to help, do book launches there. So for me, the beauty about writing a book that initially seemed so complex was in the end that the audience was people who were globally mobile and also people who were serving those who are globally mobile. So actually, it was everybody from relocation agents, global mobility specialists, HR of the companies, to the expat families, to the bilingual educators, to the schools. I used all of that, all these different stakeholders to then help get the book out.
And you even found one company who has sponsored some of your events.
That's correct. That's correct. And I think it was, it was quite, I must admit, I have no background in PR or marketing, and it was the first time I was doing all of these things. So it was a lot of learning on the go, but actually for me, that was the best part because it felt exciting. It felt like, this is your baby, it's your book, and you're just learning so much as you go. So I made a lot of mistakes, Joe, as anybody would, but in the end, I don't know if I would do it any differently because I did end up learning so much in the process.
So somebody has asked, how long did it take you to write the book? It does sound like it would have taken the 10 years that Lisa had suggested,
Oh,
but
I love
how
that
long was
question,
it?
Lisa. So I will tell you exactly how long. I did 2 months of pre-planning before pre-planning for the book before I wrote even one word. I spent 3 months doing the survey and getting the survey results back. I spent a year writing and rewriting the book. I have to mention rewriting because in the end, I think I spent more time rewriting the book than I did on writing the book, and that's quite crucial. So 1 year, I gave myself just one goal for 2018. That was to write the book, and that's it. That was just my one goal for the year 2018. And then 3 months of post writing. So that was getting my book out to a couple of beta readers who would read the book and provide feedback, and then of course editing, design, book cover, all of that. So all in all, it took a year and a half, exactly 1 year, 6 months.
Wow. Yeah, which is pretty normal, I have to say.
Yeah.
Well, that's so interesting. Really, we could do a writing a how-to book 101 from you. So you've said you've made some mistakes, but I want to just finish with two questions. What do you think your biggest mistake was?
Um, I think I underestimated that promoting a book was literally a full-time job. I thought the hard part was writing the book. I didn't realize the hard part comes once the book is out there. I really underestimated that it was a full-time job, and doing it with not a lot of experience was quite the learning, journey for me. I got into all sorts of things. I had my book shipped to South Africa. They were held over by customs authority. I had, to email contacts in Johannesburg, say, I'm sorry, can you please pick up my books and I'll, I'll take you out for dinner once I'm there. And just all sorts of things that could go wrong went wrong. But, in the end, I really learned from each mistake. The other mistake, and this I would love to hear also your opinion on this, Joe, because as an author, everyone tells you you need to have so many reviews on Amazon for your book to be successful, and I really felt that pressure as a first time author. And so I definitely got a few reviews, but I know my book doesn't have as many reviews as maybe some other books do, or maybe as many as I could have gotten. And what was happening there was that, I felt that people who were reading the book were liking it, but instead of putting a review on Amazon, they were just telling their friends to read it, and in a way I thought that was working really well because it was word of mouth. People weren't necessarily posting their review on Amazon for the whole world to see, but they were recommending the book to their circle or to their expat friends or to whoever they thought it would benefit from reading the book. Maybe people married, someone to a different culture, or raising their kids with different languages. So I don't know. This was something that really, I felt like I was making mistakes by not gathering enough reviews. But in the end, I felt the book still did quite well, even though it doesn't have so many Amazon reviews.
Yeah, well, Amazon reviews help random people to find your book more than anything, and it also helps it to float up to the top of the search when people are searching, and it also helps Amazon to want to keep it in stock and that sort of thing. So it does help. But the trouble
Mhm.
is with the reviews is that there's lots of different Amazons. They've just opened Amazon.nl in the
Yeah.
Netherlands, apparently. And you
Yeah.
have to have your reviews on all the different platforms. It's
Yeah.
not good enough to just have them all on .com. So
And that's true, Joe. And I just want to mention one other challenge I faced because I was going to events and doing book launches, in-person book launches. I was selling books at the back of the room, right at the end. So when it came time to posting a review on Amazon, it was not a verified purchase because they had purchased the book from me in the room, and it wasn't showing up as a verified purchase. So Amazon would give people trouble in posting a review. And that's actually what happened with me. I was selling 100, 200 books, in 1 hour, standing, in a school auditorium. But very few reviews were being posted on Amazon because they weren't allowed to show up because it wasn't a verified purchase. So for me, I really had to almost convince myself, okay, I don't focus so much on that. Focus on how much your message is resonating with people, and focus on whether they are recommending it to other people. Yeah, I don't know if that's a big mistake, because normally all the traditional authors, everyone will tell you, no, it's all about the reviews. And I don't know, I really enjoy just making those connections with people. And sometimes they just message me their review. And for me, that was okay. I mean, I don't know, I didn't make such a big deal out of it, but I know a lot of authors can get really bogged down because it is so hard to get those reviews.
Yeah, I
Going.
know. I know it can be hard to get them, but the other irony is that you make more money selling back of the room than you do on Amazon. So, and also, if Mariam, at the end of the day, you want to be seen as an expert and an authority, you're achieving that without the Amazon reviews. So you are achieving what you set out to do. So we've had what you think might be your biggest mistake. I think many people underestimate the amount of promotion you have to do. What do you what would you definitely want to recommend to somebody else as something that you got absolutely right and you think other people should do?
Um, I think before writing a book, build your audience before you write a book. Because I think it's going to really help. You will have people who already resonate with you, with your work. I think it's a lot harder, quite honestly, to have a book and then build an audience, because you're working almost against, everything. And and I think people don't like someone who is so salesy, and constantly saying, "Oh, but I've written a book on this. I've written, check this out." I mean, in the end, I think writing a book is about building relationships. So focus on building relationships with your readers. I think that is truly going to serve you, no matter if you continue just blogging, or you write a book, or you whatever it is you do. I think make sure that you're focused on the authenticity of your connections, because the same people will then definitely want to hear from you, not just maybe be interested in one book you write, but maybe be interested in the second one you write as well. I think so. Just think long term would be my idea and my suggestion, because I think in the end, it's truly about building bridges, building those
Mm,
relationships with your
mm.
readers.
Excellent, excellent answers. Well, we have had some questions here, so let's start see what questions that we've got here. Emma has said that blogging has really helped her. It has really helped her when she's been a bit lost too.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah would like to say how much she thought your exchange of storytelling was a really good idea. Yes, I like that one too. I'd not heard that before. Then we're just getting down to the questions. We've got, how do you spell Mola? Well, we've got that. We asked that question, how long did it take for you to write it? And then Lisa asked a very interesting question. Did you have formal agreements with your book contributors?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for asking that question. I think I forgot to mention that I did have a contract that I sent to the experts ahead of time, and it outlines everything in terms of copyright. It outlines exactly what they would get in return. For instance, their names. I don't know if you can see this. Oops, their names are at the back of the book. So all of these terms and agreements were mentioned in that.
Yeah. And we can help you with those if anybody wants to know about that. And Lisa also wants to know, will you write another one?
Lisa, the short answer to your question is yes, except I want to switch gears and write a fiction book. So that's something I'm definitely thinking of. Perhaps when the dust settles a bit. As you know, I not just write about leading a mobile life, but I actually live a very messy mobile life. So it's been quite the year of relocating in a pandemic and giving birth and all of that. So the idea is definitely there. I think I'm at the stage where all the ideas are coming in and I'm letting them come in. I'm in a new country and just sort of taking all that inspiration as it comes. And then the plan is to definitely get started on the next one once the time is right.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's great. Well, thank you very much. I think we'll stop these questions now and then we'll just go into the informal chat and you can put your cameras on. So thank you so much, Mariam. It's been absolutely fascinating. You will be able to see a written version of this on my blog, The Monthly Inspirer, probably from on May the 1st. That will probably go out. And you will also be able to see this video on YouTube anytime and also on my website in a week or two. So thank you very much indeed. I shall stop the recording now. And thank you, Mariam.
Thank you, Joe. It's such a pleasure to come and talk about how our ideas end up coming out in life. And I think it's so important to back ourselves up. I know a lot of us feel like we can't do it. And I just wanted to make one last point. I don't know if we're still recording. It doesn't matter if we're not recording,
We
but
are.
I think a lot of people ask like, what is, the cornerstone of success? And for me, it's not really hard work or determination or any of those things, but it's just simply believing in yourself. And I think that if you believe in yourself, it can be the most powerful thing that you do for yourself in your journey, because other people will believe you and believe in you when you believe in yourself. So a lot of us, I think, struggle with that. And I think that's a crucial part of this journey.
I think that's a really important point you've just made. I have struggled with the believing in myself bit, and I found a way of making that much easier. And that is, it's not, you don't have to totally believe in yourself, but you do have to 110% believe in your idea. And I think
I
it can be
love
much
that. I
easier to
love that.
believe in your idea. So
Yeah.
thank you, Mariam.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you, everyone who has written a comment